And I want to welcome you to what has my attention. And I got to say, Reese Harris, cryptocurrency, and getting you on this show is just, I've been really wanting to spend some time with you because I love the way your mind works. We're actually kind of compatible. I don't know about you, but I have the gift of ADD, and I do consider it. It does help, doesn't it?
It's a beautiful thing. It's all about the curious mind. And I think those that have ADD are just the most curious, and curiosity is one of the greatest gifts that we can have. I think that's one of the things that not only sets us a little bit apart, but it also makes us just love life all that much more.
Yeah.
Insatiable curiosity. I think it's one of my favorite things about my personality.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I wanted to do before we get started is actually share something with everybody, if I can find it here. Because Reese Harris and Chris Ryan were on episode 3 in All Mavens Branded Podcast, and I kind of wanted to share a little bit of that because it's actually a good episode, and it was great to have you there. So here we go.
Does this bring back old memories?
Oh, yeah. Lennon-McCartney days.
You remember that?
Days. You remember that?
Love me do.
Yep. You look great on stage. You've aged well.
Love you. I try to do that little Paul McCartney, but head bobble.
Head bobble.
Please.
So how are your headphone levels, Reese?
They sound good.
Not too
Maybe bring them down just a notch, but they're good.
AKG.
All right. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to give people a little bit of a sense and drive them over to episode 3 on allmavensbrandedpodcast.com because we had a lot of fun. And as you know, that was in studio pre-pandemic, right?
That's right.
And now we're all virtual and we're trying to make it sound as good, but it's just really difficult. But
man, the sound was delicious. I mean, your voice was sexy.
Well, it still is. Reese, come on. Yeah.
Oh man, and it was you and Chris Ryan. Chris was a professional disc jockey for years and years. I mean, he's got that down. So. And
you guys knew each other in Tucson, is that right?
I was the best man at his wedding. His wife and my wife knew each other. They first met, I think, in 7th grade. So as a foursome, we go back.
Wow, that's
good
cool.
People. Good people.
Well, so we're here today to talk about cryptocurrency because Reese is a member of the Carlsbad Technology Advisory Committee, and he's been there for a long time. And right now, I'm currently the chair. And you gave a great presentation this last week about it, and then we connected. And I just wanted to find out more because you're kind of deep down the rabbit hole on this as much as one can be. I'm imagining it's kind of a part-time passion for you right now. Is that right?
That's correct. It's part-time in so much as, I've got a full-time job and everything else, but it's also a passion because it's my belief. The more I learn about it, the more I learn about, let me be specific about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and just this whole decentralized concept of stores of value and currency, digital currency. We are entering into a dramatic time in our world's history, and it's happening so fast, and I can barely hang on. The changes, the dynamics, the power of it, it's unbelievable. It really is.
Yeah, before we got on, we were talking briefly about The Fourth Turning, which I've read 3 times, actually 2. I read them twice and did an Audible on it once. So let's talk briefly about that because a lot of what's happening right now is expressed in that book.
Well, that's right. Written in, I think, 1997 by Neil Howe and Jack Strauss, I believe. And the book is talking about these 20-year cycles that 4 of them happen in every generation, roughly between 80 and 90 years. And we're in the 4th turning right now. Yeah. So what it does is it chronicles historically what other 4th turnings have been like. The last one that we have in memory is the Great Depression and World War II began with the stock market crash. So all those events made up the 4th turning, and then followed by a first turning, which would have been the 50s and early 60s. And then each one of these turning time periods has its own very specific set of economic factors. For example, in the last fourth turning, wealth inequality was very extreme, much like it is now. Whereas in the first turning after World War II, wealth inequality was very balanced, more so than ever in those four turnings. And each one of the turning time frames has its own predictable. And the book goes back to, before the U.S. was even formed, talking about the turning events and each one of those 20-year profiles and how they just are the same. It's so funny how history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And that's what we're in. We're in a fourth turning. And the predictions that they made in 1997 when they wrote the book of what this fourth turning would look like were prescient. They predicted things. Now, just imagine when they wrote the book, the internet was just beginning, and yet they predicted cryptocurrency and they predicted some major economic calamity, due to this rising level of debt, sovereign debt as well as corporate debt. The debt levels are just out of control. All things that are predictable based on prior fourth turnings. Mm-hmm. And so it's a fascinating book. And that book, as well as a few others, have just, and we're in the thick of it. And if you can open your eyes up and start to really see all the things that are happening and happening so fast, and you look at history, then, you just realize that, patterns are here. And we're in the middle of one, and it's robust. The fourth turning, of course, according to the authors, is called the crisis. That's the crisis turning. And so, not to make it all negative, but we are in extreme economic situations. Look at how much money not just the United States, but all these countries throughout the world, are leveraging themselves, to the max. We're in what's called modern monetary theory of economics, which we never really proclaimed that we're in MMT, but by golly, this is MMT on steroids right now.
Yeah.
Where the government, fiscal and the Federal Reserve basically have combined to work together to borrow money and inject money into the economy. But the trouble is, all it's doing is just ingratiating the banks, and none of it's really getting into the hands of the frontline people. Mm-hmm. So the only solution is going to be a digital dollar. It's much like what the Chinese are doing right now. They've already instituted a digital yuan, and they've been experimenting with it for close to 9 months now, and it's pretty potent. When you think that the Fed will be able to inject money into very specific demographics within a country, whether it be by location or industries or whatever, that is different than what they have. That it'll be a whole new set of levers for the federal government, but it'll also be a challenge to privacy. Imagine the Federal Reserve. Right. They'll know every dime that you spend. They'll give you $200. They'll say, "Hey, here's $200 trying to stimulate the economy," and then they'll say, "Oh, and you only have 2 weeks to spend it. Oh, and by the way, we know everywhere you are spending it. Privacy be damned." And so, this is part of the reason I think that cryptocurrencies, particularly Bitcoin, has really launched, because it's completely anonymous. It's unhackable and anonymous. Nobody knows. They'll see the transaction you did, but they won't know who it is.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with a definition of cryptocurrency.
Well,
I know it could be an hour long in itself, but let's try to just try to keep it really simple for somebody.
Yeah. Well, think of it like this: if the internet basically took information and made it programmable, so that all forms of internet information were turned into packets on the internet, mm-hmm. right? Before that, it was newspapers and paper, and books, and the radio and TV. But the internet turned information on every level into little packets that bounce around, right? Well, what cryptocurrency has done is to do the same thing, but on a new layer on top of that called the blockchain. And so cryptocurrency is basically taking all forms of scarcity and energy and turning it into a distributed ledger, and it's on chain. So It's basically taking the energy that money is and making it digital.
So it's available to anybody, and it's not really controlled by one person. Is that right? Or one entity?
Bitcoin in particular, which is decentralized, and that's where
Mhm.
decentralized currencies are just insanely potent, because to your point, you made the absolute point, which is it doesn't matter who you are. You could be the wealthiest billionaire, or you could be someone in Nigeria. You still have access to the same currency. You don't have any. There's no advantages with cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
or disadvantages, which is very empowering.
Okay, good. When you're ready and you want to jump into the slides, let me know and I'll share that screen.
Yeah, go ahead if you would. We'll start with the first one.
Okay, so give me a second. This is all new to me.
All right.
And just let me know when you want to advance. So you can see the screen pretty well?
Yes. So Bitcoin is a number of things, but one thing that it is a complex device, basically, and it's often compared to gold.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently, on the Stansberry Research YouTube channel, there was a debate between Michael Saylor and Frank Gustra, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Now, Frank is a billionaire. He's been an investor billionaire, for years. He's very well known, and he's a gold bug, as they call it, but he's a very strong proponent of gold and not in favor of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Michael Saylor, on the other hand, is an MIT graduate. He's the founder of MicroStrategy, which is a very well known technical company. And Michael bought, over the past 6 months, about $2 billion worth of Bitcoin, and to put into his treasury. So he started the process of corporations buying Bitcoin in lieu of gold in order to get a better return on investment. So in other words, holding cash in a treasury is just guaranteed to lose money, because
Mm-hmm.
money's being devalued by the government. It's being debased. So then the next logical place is to buy gold, and gold paper or actual hard gold. But that's losing value as well, as a result of the declining dollar and other factors. So Michael Saylor went full on. He did a bunch of research, and as an MIT engineer, he's a former, I think he was studying astrophysics or something crazy. But so he really did a deep dive and went full on into Bitcoin, and for a lot of reason. And his $2 billion investment has netted him, in his treasury, which is not necessarily a place you expect to have gains, something like $300 million gain. So
Wow.
out of his advocacy for Bitcoin, Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, many others have done a deep dive into Bitcoin as a store of value in lieu of gold. So at any rate, these two guys, Frank Gusta and Michael Saylor, hosted by Daniela Camboni, did just, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, did a debate. And it was a fascinating debate. So you ask, sort of what's on my mind right now, or what am I thinking of? It was watching that. I actually watched it twice, because there was so much incredible content that was being shared. And these are complex discussions, complex issues. So I recommend anybody that wants to really understand sort of the forces at play, you'll hear two completely different perspectives, both very well articulated. And I think it's worth listening.
So how does one get to it to watch it? Do you know?
Just go to YouTube and then find the Stansberry Research
Okay.
channel,
Okay.
and it'll be right at the top. And
Okay,
you'll look
good.
for the that little logo. You can see that logo, but really, really worth listening to. I had to watch it twice just to hear Michael Saylor explain some of the things. The guy's so fast, but very well articulated. So we'll go to the
Nice.
next slide, and I'll show you part of what's happening with Bitcoin.
Sounds like a good dinner and a movie.
Well, if you're curious like you and I, So here's the latest what's happening with Bitcoin. This is kind of an interesting trend that we're seeing right now. It's down quite a bit from a high of around $64,000 per coin. Now, of course, you can buy, fractions of the coin, but it's down to, as of about an hour ago, down to 49,000. And as you can see, the bottom of the candle went all the way down to, 47,000. So it's really had a downward trend. And the question is, and you can go to the next slide, the trend or the question is this a bad thing, and what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
But as you can see down at the bottom, that in the last 12 days, 10 of them have been massive sell-offs. And when that happens, you're probably going to drop the price, because it's a very simple calculation. Bitcoin is fixed at 21 million coins. So there's no flexibility. There's no variation there. That's unique to Bitcoin, that it's got a fixed amount. Never will be more than 21 million coins.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have that many in circulation right now. There's about 18 million in circulation. We'll eventually get to 21 million by the year 2140 or something like that. But that's all part of the mining process. But as you can see, just in the last 12 days, so a lot of people are theorizing that a number of the larger holders of Bitcoin have sold off, just sort of cashed out. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that what's interesting is the volume of transactions on the cryptocurrency exchange overall are at literally an all-time high. I mean, it's unbelievable how many. This is, what is it? I think it was 1.26 trillion this month, and we're not even done with the month. And it's the highest amount of cryptocurrency trading volume for any single month ever. What do we still have a week left? So that's pretty incredible when you think about, the activity that's happening on the blockchain with all cryptocurrencies. And go to the next slide. And one of the things that I find interesting is when you understand that part of the whole process are these halving events. And this was built in. This is built into the structure of Bitcoin in particular. But after a halving event, which I won't explain all that, but after a halving event, there's going to be a bull market, and the bull market is going to have a drawdown, they call it. So at some point in the bull market after a halvings happen every 4 years, there's going to be a drawdown. But this slide, if you can sort of interpret it, the top halving drawdown event after the halving, the drawdown after the 2012 halving was pretty extreme. The one in 2016 was less extreme, and the one that we had in 2020, this is basically what they're theorizing is the drawdown from that halving event is quite less. So what we're seeing is a tapering of the drawdowns. We're seeing more stability within the Bitcoin marketplace, even though it's extremely volatile. Go to the next slide, and you can actually see what the trend line is. We're still seeing quite a trend line, but you can see now this goes back to October when the price was around $11,000 a coin. Now it's what are we, 7 months later, and it's up to 49. It got as high as almost 65,000. So we're definitely in a drawdown period right now, but a lot of folks are saying right now this is just the precursor to the next upswing that we're experiencing right now. And so why do you say there's going to be an upswing? And what's happened different than what happened in 2017 when there was a huge uptick and then a huge fall off a cliff? That was all driven by personal investors. Right now it's driven by primarily institutional investors. So you have organizations like New York Life and Massachusetts Mass Mutual Life Insurance. These are mutual insurance companies that have trillions of dollars on the books, but they're very, very careful about what they invest in. And they, along with JP Morgan and the major banks, are fully getting on board with Bitcoin in particular, and really seeing that this is not only a place where they can store, it's a store of value, but it's also a platform along with Ethereum that is really an exciting future. It's the next evolution of money and stores of value. So go to the next slide, and you'll see the what's interesting here is with gold. So what's happening with gold? Well, gold is having a little bit of an uptick lately, but the trend since last August is definitely on a downward slide. So a lot of people are theorizing that what's happening is that Bitcoin is basically taking the thunder out of gold, making it a little bit more difficult to be an advocate for gold. But again, I go back to that Stansberry podcast or interview debate with Michael Saylor and Frank Gustra. They both had incredibly interesting, fascinating points to make, really talking about the global economic system, global money, how money flows. It's just amazing. So you can go to the next slide, and I'll show you a little bit about how it kind of looks. So the internet basically is the foundational piece to what is built on top of it, which is this blockchain. Blockchain is nothing more than a ledger. It's like accounting 101, where you have debits on the right and credits on the left, and money transfers from one person to the next, or one node to the next. And what makes it unique is that each transaction is completely viewable by anyone that has the blockchain viewable on their computer. You can see every single transaction that ever happens. It's fascinating. But you don't know who did it. So there's complete anonymity at a level that's unprecedented. So that leads to a high level of privacy. And so this whole blockchain technology is amazing. It's not terribly difficult to develop apps on Ethereum, which is Bitcoin and Ethereum are sort of the two main players on the blockchain as far as currency and stores of value are concerned. They're very different. Bitcoin is not something that can really be a platform that can build DeFi or decentralized finance products on top of it. Whereas Ethereum is not only a coin, just like Bitcoin, it is a coin that you can actually, or a token that you can invest in, but it is also a platform for which decentralized finance is being built upon it. So decentralized finance would look like the NFTs. You might have heard of NFTs lately. An NFT is basically like a deed or a title on your house. It's a deed or a title affixed to a digital asset or a piece of artwork or a song. And what makes NFTs fascinating is that you can actually, through what's called a smart contract, be able to decide exactly how that deed or that trust or that title is designed. So, if you sell a piece of, if you create a piece of artwork and you sell it with a NFT attached to it, you can have, every time that piece of art is sold, you can receive a commission in perpetuity. I mean, there's some crazy things that can be done with it. You can do NFTs and put them on a piece of real estate, like a home.
Wow.
I'll show you an example in just a minute.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the structure of the way this whole digital currency is being built. And you can see why Ethereum is really, in many ways, sort of the future of the decentralized finance world. And many cities in the United States, many countries are getting full on board. Skip ahead 2 slides. And for example, Miami is trying very desperately to be, and they are they are really recognized as sort of the hub of Bitcoin development and decentralized finance. Mayor Francis Suarez is just going all in on cryptocurrency. In fact, they are adding Bitcoin to the treasuries of the Miami treasuries. They're moving forward with, this whole notion that the world is moving in this direction. Go to the next slide. And you want to be a part of it. You don't want to be sort of beholden to the past. Now, Wyoming is interesting because one of their senators is a huge investment banker turned, I think she's a senator, turned proponent of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and also decentralized finance. And so Wyoming is probably the forerunner in creating bank charters that these banks are nothing but cryptocurrency banks. Wyoming, of all places. And she just sees an opportunity. Wyoming is sort of the wild, wild west of all things, including finances, financial instruments. And so, with her endorsement, they're full on. Go to the next slide. Here's an interesting one. Illinois, just 2 days ago, creates a special charter for digital assets. So this is similar to what Wyoming is doing. Illinois is jumping on board with this. You can jump to the next slide, and you'll see that, of all places, Louisiana.
Really?
This is this just was yesterday, and this is a proclamation by the House of Representatives in Louisiana. It is, so if you read it really quick, that second paragraph, does hereby commend Satoshi Nakamoto for his contribution to economic security. Now, Satoshi Nakamoto is sort of the founder of Bitcoin. He was really the one that spearheaded the original white paper back in 2008, coming out of the crisis of 2008. That's, from the ashes of 2008's global economic crisis came Bitcoin, which is kind of amazing. But here, Louisiana is getting on board with this whole thing. So it's really interesting to see, that some people see it and some people don't. We're at that point where, it's evident very clearly that this is a future. It's a future of not only in the decentralized finance world, which involves insurance and involves, title transfers for products and homes. It involves, banking and lending and, on a whole new level. I mean, the what's possible is just mind bending. But
what's going on? Yeah. Is there anything going on in California regarding this?
It's funny. I haven't really heard much.
Yeah. Considering that California is considered a pretty progressive state, you might think that they would be on board with it.
Yeah. I wonder if, I don't know. That is a great question. I always have my ear, wondering,
Sure.
when are we going to hear California doing this sort of thing? I'm sure they're doing it. I mean, they can't help it. But
so what do you stand to lose if you don't?
If you don't get into it?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't invest in Bitcoin or some of the other cryptocurrencies, you stand to lose whatever gain. Like, I have this philosophy, whereas, if you buy $10 worth of Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to start paying attention.
Yeah.
If you buy $10 worth of, any cryptocurrency, Dogecoin, for example, which is it was started as a joke, for heaven's sakes, you're going to start paying attention. And all of a sudden things are going to start to click, and you're going to start to learn about why this is important. But I think a lot of people are just, it's just human nature. We get up in the morning, we make, brush our teeth, we make breakfast, we get the kids off to school, we go to our job, and just leave me alone. They don't want to have to deal with this huge revolution that's happening in the world of finance on the world stage. You can go to the next slide, and I'll show you something interesting about Bitcoin. So there's this thing that you can do with stocks, and you can measure sort of what you think the future value of a stock is. It's called the stock to flow projection. And this particular company called Pantera, and they're not the only ones that have done this. Many others have done it, which is to project what the price of Bitcoin will be going forward. So their April 2020, a year ago, newsletter listed these prices. This is what Bitcoin would be valued at going forward, and how many weeks ahead or behind would their projection be on target. And look at, for April 15th, 2021, they were on the money, which is a little amazing. And now, they're saying Bitcoin's going to be 115,000 by August 1st. And many are projecting, using stock to flow, that Bitcoin will be upwards of 200,000, or at least 140. I think the range is from 140 to 220. So, if you're thinking about buying it just as an investment, it's very volatile. I'm not an investment counselor. This is not a show that makes recommendations at all, but it is fascinating to witness. A lot of people are saying that we're in really the first inning of this whole decentralized finance world. And when I say decentralized, that means no one has control of it. No one has control over Bitcoin, ultimately, which is really powerful when you think about governments, sovereign organizations, sovereign governments. I mean, that's how they get along. The U.S. is fortunate to have the power of having the reserve currency, but in a way, that's kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of the money that's flowed over to, a lot of the industry that's flowed to China has flowed over to China because it's certainly profitable for us to be able to do that. But as the reserve currency, we've kind of been almost forced into doing that. But that's not been a good thing for us to do. That's been a decision that's been sort of played out over the years. And now 70% of pharmaceuticals are made in China. And when it became time, when back at the beginning of the COVID, when we needed face masks, we couldn't get any. We couldn't get toilet paper. I mean, it was like all of a sudden we're left with our pants down as a country. And I'm hoping that we're going to start to wake up and realize that being the reserve currency is maybe not the best thing. I don't know what the alternative is, but that there's other ways that we can save our money aside from 0.1% interest earned at your local Wells Fargo bank. How are you ever going to get ahead, especially when you've got the M2 money supply and you've got CPI, it's going to eat away at that, quickly. M2 money supply is really just the measure of money that's flowing from the government into the economy. And in some respects, that's a good measure of inflation. And it's sitting at around like what, 12, 15, 20% or something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even measure it for you anymore. The M2 money supply, they stopped telling you what the M2 money supply was back in February because, the government doesn't want you to know all that bad news.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one other thing that's kind of interesting. And I'll just finish on this point is the next slide, which is one of the largest on-ramps, off-ramp companies is Coinbase for buying and selling cryptocurrencies of all flavors. Coinbase just launched their direct listing last week, and you can see sort of how it trended. You can see the top of the first day of the first candle got up to $440,000, $430,000, and now it's sitting at $294. So it's a little scary, getting in right out of the gate. It's probably best to just hang on to it for a little bit. But Coinbase is a major player. Them and Bitfinance and a few others are the major players in, this world of buying, for just folks like you and me. This is how we buy our Bitcoin, and we can leave it in their system, or we can take it off the blockchain. We can what they call put it into cold storage, which means taking it off the blockchain and putting it into our, into a little device that sits on our desk.
So what interfaces do people use to manage all of this? Let's just say.
Well, you buy and sell it using Coinbase or BlockFi, any number of different.
So you're essentially getting online and creating an account with them.
You create an account. Yeah, it's a little bit more involved. It's a little bit like starting up a Wells Fargo bank account.
Mm-hmm.
There's two-factor authentication. You have to upload a picture of your driver's license. And then once you buy it, because of the nature of our banking system, you don't actually have access to your money. You cannot send it or receive it for like a week, because these organizations they have the Bitcoin. Like, it's not like the banking system where they're borrowing money through many different channels all the way up to the Fed. It's just kind of wishy-washy. So these, and I'm not explaining that very well, but Coinbase and these others, when you buy the coins, you don't actually get access to it right away. They have to wait till it completely clears through the entire monetary system, the banking system, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. So that's how we do it. You just buy it, you hold on to it there, leave it like a little bank account or investment account, and away you go.
Interesting. So what else? Is this the last slide? You got more?
Well, I've got more. I could talk a little bit more.
And I want to be sensitive to your time. I know you have a hard stop, but you want to...
I'm good right now. Let's go on to the next one, which is this business of NFTs. This one's called the first 5,000 days, which is a daily chronicle of the first 5,000 days of the internet as a piece of art, sold for $69 million as an NFT. So it was the first real pronounced NFT sale. And like a title or a deed to something, it's a digital token, as they call it, that securely stores information on the blockchain. Now, NFT is a horrible name. It's called a non-fungible token. Non-fungible meaning that there's only one of them.
Yeah.
Fungible is like if your dollar bill in your wallet is fungible. That means there's there's billions and gazillions of them.
Yeah.
Non-fungible means there's just one unique. So an NFT is a token, which is like a deed. And so that's very noteworthy. And there's been a number of other ones that are just outrageous. The first Jack Dorsey Twitter, he was the one that started Twitter, and his first tweet sold for like $2 million. He donated it to charity.
Oh my gosh.
On to the next one. This is where it gets kind of interesting and close to home. Here's a house up in LA that's for sale, but the guy that's selling it created a drawing of the house, an NFT of the drawing, not of the house itself, but just of the drawing of the house that goes, he's selling that with, or originally he was selling it with the house. Then he decided to sell it separately. The NFT is currently bid at $117,000
Wow.
for the house that's also for sale. So he's kind of split it into two parts.
Well, this thing comes with 3 spaceships. That's pretty interesting.
Gotta love it,
Yeah.
If you go to the next slide, you'll see there's what's also happening. And this is a very new thing, but this is very interesting. Title companies, title insurance companies like Fidelity Title and First American Title, they basically sell you title insurance to ensure that when you sell your house or when you buy the house, that you've got clear title. And so you have an insurance policy to make sure that that's so, which is a great thing. Well, title companies are also, since the advent of blockchain, because blockchain is such a great way to manage the transfer of these transactions in terms of collectively putting into a place where it can be easily transferred, separate from the insurance policy, but just as a store of information. So what's happening now is companies like Realty, and you can go to their website and check out their intro video, which is really amazing. They're creating NFTs for homes.
Oh.
You can actually do the work that these title insurance companies are doing. You can also do yourself and create an NFT for your home, which is like a title and a deed. Now you have to own the title to do that. You have to own your home outright, I suppose, but you can do it for your car. You can. I mean, it's just what's happening is just astounding. I really think.
Yeah, I'm amazed by this. It's just wow.
Yeah, it's a new world. It is a new off the charts answer to we're in the fourth turning, and we're in this time of absolute monetary madness. And I think the world is starting to really rise up and say, is there a better solution? Oh, and we've got some ideas. And let's expand on these ideas. Let's see what we can do to create a monetary basis that might be more equitable, rather than the dollar. And if you're closer to the Fed, you make your living is going to be, more, you're going to be more wealthy. But if you're further away from the Fed and you're living on the streets, I mean, this wealth inequality is being answered with literally a broadside to the entire financial system.
Yeah.
It's also interesting when you witness states. I love that states, you saw Illinois and Wyoming and Louisiana and Miami or in Florida, are getting on board with this whole technology because they realize it's not only the future, it's also the source of great jobs. These are high-paying, high-tech jobs, and they're trying to lure programmers into their communities. I would love to see Carlsbad do that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Carlsbad's got some great things going on with the desal plant and the airport. There's no reason why Carlsbad couldn't be like Miami and like these other states that are just, you don't have to be a state. You just have to be a sovereign, whatever, to be able to, plant your flag and say, you know what, we're going to
claim your stake.
Right. Claim your stake. Well, you remember, I don't know how long you've been here, but when we first moved here, or shortly after we moved here, it was right after the Cold War, and Clinton slashed the defense budget. That was, I think, around 1992 or something like that. And that was devastating to San Diego. And devastating to San Diego meant that, Hughes and General Dynamics and these other major defense contractors, they just pulled up stakes and they moved away.
Yeah.
And San Diego went through a very difficult recession for 5 years or 6 years. It was tough. And Susan Golding was the mayor at the time, and I'll never forget how she proclaimed that we would not be saddled with such a dependency on the defense industry. Rather, we're going to put our focus on biotech.
Mhm.
Now, in 1992, what in the world is biotech? And so she got some criticism around that, but looking in hindsight, now San Diego is one of the top biotech cities, along with Boston and San Jose, and I think Seattle, in the world, which is wonderful. But it took that sort of foresight to be able to say, you know what, I see a little bit of the future, and we need to get on board and take that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember living in Portland, Oregon. There was a biotech company there. I'm trying to remember the name. I don't remember. It was, gosh, that was a long time ago. That was probably actually in the 70s.
That's when it
Anyway,
started.
Yeah, exactly. Reese, should we stop sharing the screen, or you got something else there?
I got it, man. That's what I have. That you asked. I love the title of your podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that you asked like what's got my attention, and I'll tell you that is my attention.
Yeah.
In spades, as you could tell. And I what's interesting to me is that there's so many aspects of it. You could go down so many different rabbit holes, whether it's the macroeconomic rabbit hole, whether it's the development of the DeFi, whether it's all things Bitcoin. There's so many different. What's exciting is that and how disruptive it is. And now you're witnessing China and the US and other countries developing their own digital currencies. There's so many different aspects of this that are fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening so fast.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would welcome you to come back and do an update. I mean, you and I at the chamber, monthly update's great, but we could, combine it. I'm sure it's like your updates that you do once a month at the Technology Advisory Committee at the chamber. Then we could, at some point that week, like we did this week, you could hop on Fridays and just even a 15, 20-minute update just to kind of keep it going. And then, yeah, okay, great. So the other thing I really want to make sure is want to talk about your business. I mean, cryptocurrency is not your business. What is your business, Reese?
Well, so Resource is the name of the company that I own and have owned for a number of years. It's been a marketing agency for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
We had employees and a full staff for a while, but then basically around 2008, 2010, right in there, everyone went and independent. And so what I do is when I work with clients, and basically we're a marketing and business strategy builder for entrepreneurs. So we work with smaller companies, founders, CEOs to help. Number one, our number one focus is to help them be more profitable and try to articulate what their vision is and what their goals are. And then secondarily is out of that, then we will work with them specifically on their marketing plan. Mm-hmm. And develop a marketing strategy, develop an entire plan for them, whether it be video and video production, and whether it be social media, whether it's branding, design, website development, whatever. So we will actually find the solution for them to get the best bang for their buck. Mm-hmm. Best practices. A lot of times we'll work with companies, just structuring their BHAG, their big audacious, their hairy audacious goal, right? And we'll just work with the founders to just articulate that, just to get that into focus, and then come up with a number of maybe 4 or 5 different, key focal initiatives. And then out of that, who's going to do what by when? We have a matrix that we use in a lot of our planning for those folks. That in and of itself can be absolutely transformative. But then you got to take it to the next level. It's are we adding staff? So we have a whole process where we will help companies to really fine tune their growth strategy. Mm-hmm. And is it a matter of developing a new division, and what's the staffing requirements and so forth. But then it all boils down to what we love to do, which is marketing. And so we love to do all things marketing.
Yeah, very, very nice. So what's the website to get in touch with you, or best way to get in touch with you?
So we're just relaunching our website right now, actually, in the last couple of days, and we're putting some final touches on it. But you can go to resource.com, which is ree-source.com. And
ree-source.com. Yep. Good.
Play on my name, resource.com. And you can just reach out to me, and I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Yeah,
But
awesome. So
yeah,
finally, what are you doing this weekend? Given this is Friday, April 23rd, and I think I'm going to, release this as titled cryptocurrency with the date April 23rd, 2021 with Reese Harris because God, this thing's moving so fast, right?
oh, it is.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
this could be outdated information in like what, a month?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, it's we're in a very exponential curve for sure.
So Reese, what are you doing this weekend?
So this weekend, I've been working with a nutritionist, Sandy Starr, over at the Chamber. She's been
Oh,
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah, and she's really helped me to. Oh man, I've lost like 12 pounds. I'm starting to get in shape. I've been working out, and so I'm
Nice.
doing a big bike ride this weekend and trying to do a lot of exercising. I think it's almost like I got my first shot. I think you said you got your second shot. So
Yeah, the other day.
right,
Yeah.
it's almost like the minute I got the shot, I just had this weight of intensity
Right.
lifted, and I'm like, let's go do some fun stuff. Let's get
Yeah.
out.
All of a sudden, the lack of future went away for me. It's like
Yeah,
all of a sudden I could say, okay, great. My next shot is, that was like the end of March 30th, and they said 3 weeks, so it was like the 21st on
yep,
Wednesday.
yep.
And then I got this thing, I got it Wednesday, and kind of had a rough day yesterday, but I'm counting
Absolutely,
2 weeks. But I will still continue to wear a mask publicly, just
yeah.
because it's not over yet.
No, I agree. Well, shoot, we've got these variants. Holy cow!
Yeah, I know.
What does
Yeah.
that mean? So yeah, that's what I'm doing. What do you got going on this weekend, John?
Well, like I said, I was down yesterday, so I'm probably going to have to make up some time. But generally speaking, tomorrow I'm going to spend time. I'm not sure doing what yet, but just get away from the computer. Quite frankly, I like to do a digital detox on Saturday.
Exactly. Oh, it's a good thing to do once in a while. You really do.
Yeah,
Leave
and
your
then
phone at home, turn it off,
yep,
breathe the air,
yep.
see the sky for the first time in months.
Yeah, and then Sunday for Imagine Podcasting and for our clients, I just line up the schedule. I end up working about a half a day on Sunday, and I'm okay with that because we have like 3 different producers and audio editors and stuff, and just got to make sure that we start the week right. So
Well, I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing with Imagine Podcasting. I think you've got a great thing, a great service for people. You're making it accessible, which podcasting is complicated. There's a lot to it. To make it accessible for people that have something to say and have value to bring to the marketplace, I think is incredible. And so
Yeah.
keep up the great work. I love what you're up to.
Yeah, I'm sort of changing my message a little bit. I actually changed it to we help companies eliminate competition by elevating their brand and message and be heard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really it. And if you got a business and you got social media going on, great. But with podcasting, it's just like cryptocurrency. It's sort of like, on a trajectory, and it just is such a great way to get your brand and message out there. And what I tell people is, over time, it builds long-lasting, trusted relationships.
Yeah, and that's what it's about.
I mean,
Yeah.
you and I wouldn't have probably been here had not you come into the studio with Chris, right?
That's right. And
So,
hook up at the
I
chamber,
know.
which is fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing a great job at the chamber. I love what you're doing there. And
Well, thank you.
congratulations on your award last
Thank
year.
you. Yeah. Champion
Well-
of the year 2020. Yeah, it was great.
Well earned. Oh my gosh. Every time I turn around, there's John doing something else with the chamber and, podcasting and everything else. So you really helped. I mean, you really did bring the chamber into a place that I don't think many other chambers in the country are at, with
Really?
all the media that you produced.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I look at other chambers, and I'm familiar with some others around over in Indiana and some others, and all the work that you did is wonderful because it really does bring the message of our business community to the marketplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just kind of put my head down and went for it. And I was, the words are really, really nice and surprising because it's not why I did it. I did it to help as many people as I can. And that's kind of how I roll.
You're good like that, man. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Keep
All
it
right,
up.
Reese, we'll do it again soon.
I look forward to it, John. And thank you again for inviting me.
You're
Have a
welcome.
great rest of the day.
You too.
All right. See you.
Bye.
If you'd like to start a quality podcast show, visit imaginepodcasting.com.